Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about understanding why lifting has gotten to a point to where people don't focus on the basics, and it's because of marketing. I mean, that's a big deal. When you really think about it and you start looking at the fact that tons of influencers, even back when I was younger, before the internet was big like it is now, we had the magazines, right? We had all these companies that made different machines, different devices, all of this stuff to make training more complex than it needed to be, trying to fill a niche. And it was, well, we're producing this to get better results and to isolate this muscle more or to make this easier to do. It's as if it's particularly difficult to learn the big lifts. It really isn't. It's not that hard to learn how to perform a pull-up correctly or to bench press correctly. Yes, it has a little bit of a learning curve. Same thing with a back squat. A little bit of basic instruction. Okay? But what people need to remember years ago, since everyone did these things, and this is what people forget. When everyone did these things that they were normal at the gym, there were plenty of people there, who were willing to teach you how to do it. Since everyone at the gym already bench pressed and back squatted, you see where I'm going with this? They just kind of showed everyone else what to do when you joined. Now, it might not have always been the most perfect technique, but it was what worked for people. Okay? But that's what people do have to remember. There wasn't the learning curve that we have now because everyone knew how to perform them. You get in the gym today and some of the personal trainers there, the people doing that for a living, don't even know how to teach or perform basic exercises. Okay? Well, that's problematic. And that was something I feel like the starting strength people tried to address. And I'm not saying there weren't problems with what they were doing and putting out and so on, but that's what they were trying to do. Like, look, these things should be normal. They're just part of learning to lift. And if you're going to call yourself a trainer or a coach, you need to be able to teach the basic barbell lifts, right? You need to be able to teach them, at least in a manner to where people could do them and progress on them without getting themselves hurt. At least a basic proficiency. All right, but now we've gotten to the point where a whole industry has been built around this, and it's always new gimmicky devices. And this is something I've had to be aware of, there's a lot of stuff I've done for conjugate training, I've bought equipment for, and for coaching, but that is specifically because you're trying to rotate max lifts all the time and things. But even that can start to get too extreme, right? Even that can get too extreme. And we start to step back and look at all of these different tools and go, some of these tools can be useful, but are they necessary? And I feel like people have started to treat it that way. Oh, the reason you're not making the gains is because you're not using this specific sling. You're not using a slingshot on your bench. Yeah, there were guys out there benching over 500 pounds of massive chest before anyone ever came up with such an idea. Even before accommodating resistance at all with bands and chains. And the slingshot's kind of a continuation of some of that. And there were people doing that way before that. Right? I'm not saying these things don't have a place, but you see my point. It's not because you don't have a hip circle. It's not because you're not doing this perfect glute exercise, right? Because you're not doing hip thrusts. That's why you don't have great glutes. No, that's not it at all. You're just simply not training correctly or hard enough generally. These exercises are not the magic secret. And again, I'm not saying they don't have their place and they can't be useful tools, because they can. But that's not the secret. And people have tried to make it out to be, and it's always selling the new sexy. And it's always a new thing. But then they're forgetting you can go back 50 years. And unless you're trying to be a top level, high level professional bodybuilder or something of that nature, there were people who had the physiques and performance and strength and everything else that most of you out there would love to have as an ideal goal 50 years ago. Okay? 60 years ago. And it certainly wasn't because they were using more drugs than people today. But here's the point that I'm making. If someone in 1955, before all these devices were invented, before any modern supplement ideas were invented, if people were reaching the goals and had the bodies that most of you out there want, then what does that tell you? That they had all the tools and knowledge necessary to do that. And I'm not saying we can't learn from modern stuff and use new things. What I'm saying is there's a whole lot of it that's useless and it's just marketing. But then we come over to the point of if people realize how simple some of this is, they are not going to buy programs. They're not going to buy different things. They might buy coaching, because even if I put a client, I have clients who only do 5 or 6 exercises. They pay for coaching because they need the programming, they need the fatigue management, they need the accountability, right? Coaching and training will always have its place, but here's the problem. What if you don't have those skills and all you know how to do is write goofball programs that are really built around nothing but placebo and voodoo, right? They're not anything magical about them. Or selling devices, then you can't do that. But that's the reality of it. Really, training is just a matter of stimulus, making sure someone's training correctly, fatigue management, okay? Keeping their mindset straight. That's really what most of it is about at the end of the day. But how do you sell that as a product other than with direct coaching? And if you don't know how to coach, because coaching is its own skill set, well, most of the influencers don't. So it's all smoke and mirrors. Just come up with the new fancy, the new sexy. Get a whole new batch of noobs in, because that's always the biggest market. People who don't know what they're doing are always going to be the largest market in fitness. And you always have a new batch of them. So that's what they market to. That's what they cater to. And a lot of people are like, well, Jason, sometimes you stress the basics too much. For a decade, it's like, well, clearly the majority of the people aren't getting the message, so people need to keep doing it. Do you really think that's going to change in another 10 years? What if in another 10 years I'm still making that sort of content? Do you really think there aren't millions of people who still need to hear it? Of course there are. And there always will be. Particularly when the market is saturated with nonsense. You always have to keep that in mind. We need the people saying, look, guys, the basics work. It's really just about performing them correctly, loading them correctly, eating enough protein, cleaning your diet up enough. It really is that simple. It really is. For the majority of people's goals. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.